Okay, our next speaker will be Simon Adar, who's the CEO of CodeOcean.
Okay. So, talking about re-envisioning the scholarly record, I thought it's going to be interesting to ask a question: what's the purpose of the scholarly record first, and then think about how do we maintain the purpose, but in this new age. And I think that if you look at different answers, you basically come down to something like this here: to communicate and preserve research findings. But if you ask the question, why, I think that we will go down to, things that have been said here, that we want to build upon those new findings. We want to empower researchers to create new things, new research, new products in industry, and leverage previous work. So leverage can be actually negative findings, and so that we're not wasting time on negative findings, and we can sort of take that and decide what to do with that. And today, the way that we are doing things, it's basically we have the PDF, and we're expecting researchers, they are the researchers, they can read the PDFs, and then they can simply conduct the same experiments and rerun the analysis. But that's completely wrong from the eyes of a researcher, because that's not so easy. We're talking about scholarship. I wanted to give a quote by David Donahoe from Stanford 20 years ago, and he was saying, an article about computational science, and we were specifically talking about computational science back then, which was sort of an emerging field in science, and he was saying an article about computational science in a scientific publication is not the scholarship itself, it is merely advertising of the scholarship. The actual scholarship is the complete set of instructions and data which generated the figures in the article. And that was basically inspired by another Stanford professor, John Claerbout. And 20 years later, Victoria Stoughton, who's a very active researcher in computational reproducibility, brings up two claims. And she claim number one, she claims virtually all published discoveries today have a computational component. And the second claim, there's a mismatch between the traditional scientific process, I think Michael was talking about that the way that we are doing the peer review, the way that we are publishing, what we are publishing, and the computation, which basically leads to reproducibility concerns, and some people call it the reproducibility crisis, that every week there's a new publication about that. And if I'm going to take that into my sort of personal perspective in my PhD, I was working with the German Space Agency and universities and geological surveys around Europe. And we were given the task by the European Union in a funded project, Horizon 2020, FP7 back then, that we wanted to find the state-of-the-art algorithms in monitoring coal mining areas. And we were going and studying hundreds of articles, and we're trying to reproduce them to bring this sort of state-of-the-art. The end result will look like something like this in a paper. You're going to have the area of study, and then results. Each and every sort of heat map here is a result of an algorithm. Red will be detected change, blue is no change, and then you're going to sort of discuss that this algorithm detects this change and this does not, and this is better than the other. So it's very typical in a scientific article. When you read it, it sounds so easy, I'm going to describe the mathematical method behind it, and here's the result. So easy, right? It's, you know, I read it in five minutes, so it's very easy. But in fact, for us in that project, scientists were going through hell, and there are different steps, and there's friction point in each and every one of them, finding code, finding the right hardware, setting up environments in different operating systems, importing the right files. You get a bunch of files, you don't know where to start, installing all of them, debugging errors, and I can say that in most of the things that we were trying to reproduce, we were not successful. And at the end, we were sort of giving the report on the ones that we were able to reproduce. So after I finished my PhD, I came here to do a postdoc at Cornell Tech, and we sort of set a goal to make this thing easier and remove all those steps that you see here, and just provide this run button for each and every researcher, each and every user, each and every reader. And we came up with CodeOcean. So what is CodeOcean? CodeOcean is an online code execution platform that integrates with any scholarly platform. And here's an example with a publisher, publisher template. What can author do with CodeOcean? They can publish code, data together with their computing environment. And if there's an integration of CodeOcean with a publisher, there's going to be a widget in the publisher website that will have the code and data, open access for everyone to download, to view, and even to execute, because there's a run button on the right up corner of the widget. So we remove all those steps from researchers and all this tedious work. At the point that they read the article, they can actually reproduce the code, the results that are generated by the code on that specific data. They can also submit the code and data for peer review. Right now, we're going to be announcing this month, we're going to start doing peer review of code and data with a few publishers. Users now can build upon, because the starting point is a working computing environment. So we store all the computing environment in what is called Docker containers. So it captures the computing environment. We have, like, imagine a shelf with lots of different environments that we're saving for each and every published compute capsule that the author said, you know, I need this package with this operating system in that version. We capture all of that, we save it, and then when a user comes in, he gets the same environment that the author wanted that code to be run on. For the purpose of reuse, we're providing a set of tools, code versioning, Jupyter, collaboration, flexible computing, and also, you know, if you want to use that compute capsule, the code data and computing environment outside of CodeOcean, in a few weeks from now, we're going to release a feature that you can actually export the compute capsule in an open access manner, so that you can work with that outside of CodeOcean. And the final thing here is that every published compute capsule has a DOI, and again, open access on code, data, and computing environment. There's a wide use case support for open source programming languages, but also proprietary languages like Stata and MATLAB. Deep learning frameworks, so supporting GPUs, if you heard about it. Again, Jupyter notebooks and scalable compute of storage memory. Sorry. These are current collaborations. which are basically active and live. There are different links that we can share with you. IEEE was the first one, and other publishers are joining. And the thing that, we sort of set ourselves as a goal in one of the previous slides, so that in the same point of the article, you're going to have a widget with the code data and computing environment. It's a reality now. These are real examples. Coming back and sort of ending this talk, going back to the scholarly record. So we're in CodeOcean, we were focused on code and data, but we've learned, I'm coming from an engineering background, but we've learned that there are other aspects for reproducibility. So for example, protocols IO and Agene are taking care of other aspects of reproducibility. Jörg was mentioning protocols. I've learned that there's something that is called reagents. That is also very important for reproducibility. So, and I'm sure there are more, right? So, I think that for reproducibility to happen, I'm thinking about it as a sort of a record that you need all the pieces for the research to actually reproduce that and continue and build upon. This last slide. If we're thinking about the future, we can think about the scholarly record as a database, and that database we can query. Like, give me all the algorithms that know how to do denoising, and you can actually ask about specific data set or specific setting. Right now, we basically the records of research are PDFs that you can't really get the information that researchers want. And they're basically doing that in a very manual work. I remember me, we basically read hundreds of articles, and then you say, okay, and I need a spectral signature from that article. Let me copy that. I'm going to take another spectral signature from that article. Let me take that. And researchers are doing it manually, one by one. It's very long, sort of reaching, but I think that, if we can, as a scholarly society, can think about going to that direction, it's going to be very beneficial for scientists, research, and the pace of innovation. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.